People were looking towards CATL, BYD, and Tesla, but at that same time, Chery was working quietly behind the scenes, developing a battery that is not only fast-charging, but powerful enough to completely remove range anxiety. Recently, Chery claimed a 600 watt-hours per kilogram solid-state battery. And honestly, this is exactly what is creating a buzz across the entire auto industry. Now, just think, today's EVs are running at around 250 to 300 watt-hours per kilogram, but if this technology actually works, cars could deliver double the range, more power with less weight, and most importantly, the major safety issues linked to batteries could also be solved. But the real question is this just another big claim, or is it truly a breakthrough that could shake giants like Tesla, BYD, and Toyota? Because history clearly shows, many times the promise of technology sounds huge, but the real game is played in production and reliability. Will Chery really change the EV game, or is this just hype? What technology is actually being used here, and how can this move shake the market? Before we move ahead in the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can watch such videos first. Now, if you hear the name Chery today, it looks like a company rapidly moving ahead in the global EV race, but the truth is its beginning was very simple. Chery started in 1997 in a small city called Wuhu in China. At that time, it wasn't a big private company, but a small local government project. The goal was simply to build their own car industry. In the beginning, they had neither advanced technology nor global experience. In fact, according to many reports, they learned by reverse engineering early engines and designs. But this is where Chery's rail story begins. While other companies were comfortable staying in the domestic market, Chery focused on exports from the very start. In 2001, they began selling cars overseas and gradually built a strong presence in markets like the Middle East, South America, and Africa. This strategy is what makes them different from many other Chinese brands because they didn't limit themselves to China. Now, if we talk about today's numbers, Chery is selling around 1.8 to 2 million cars every year. In 2023 and 2024, they even achieved record sales. And the most important part is that their export sales are growing very fast. Meaning they are no longer just a China-based company but have become a true global player. Now let's come to the most interesting part: battery and EV technology. Chery didn't suddenly start working on batteries. This journey actually began around 2010. At that time, the EV market was still in its early stage, but the Chinese government was aggressively pushing electric mobility. Chery started investing in R&D at that time. First, hybrid systems, then pure EV platforms, and now advanced technologies like solid-state batteries. Chery's approach has been a bit different. It doesn't make flashy announcements like Tesla, but quietly builds technology. Over the past few years, it has also launched its own dedicated EV brands and platforms like Omoda and Exceed, and has been consistently working on battery efficiency, cost control, and range improvement. Now, the 600 watt-hours per kilogram solid-state battery claim didn't come suddenly. It is the result of nearly a decade of research. Chery has gradually developed this technology with its battery partners and in-house teams. Their focus is not just on high performance, but also on cost and scalability, because, honestly, the real game is won in mass production. Today, competition in the global market is extremely intense. Big names like Tesla, BYD, and Toyota are already in the race, but Chery's strength is that it is growing quietly without too much hype. Current EV problem reality check. If you think about buying an EV in today's time, along with excitement, a few fears also come into your mind, and these fears are actually slowing down EV adoption. First, let's talk about range anxiety. You always have this tension that the car might stop in the middle of the journey. In petrol and diesel cars, you know that you'll find a fuel station every few kilometers. But in EVs, finding a charging station is still not that easy, especially in smaller cities or on highways. Imagine you are on a long trip and your battery starts running low. The biggest question becomes, where will you charge? Now this uncertainty is what holds people back. Now, let's talk about charging time. Filling petrol takes just 5 minutes, but charging an EV fully can take anywhere from 30 minutes to several hours, depending on the charger. Fast chargers are not available everywhere, and charging with a normal charger is even slower. That means, if you are in a hurry, an EV does not give you the same flexibility that traditional cars do. The third problem is battery degradation. It may sound a bit technical, but in simple terms, as you use an EV, over time, its battery capacity slowly starts decreasing. A car that initially gives 400 to 500 kilometers range may drop to 300 to 350 kilometers after a few years, and the biggest fear is that if the battery gets damaged, replacing it can be very expensive. Sometimes the battery itself is a major portion of the car's total cost. Now let's talk about safety, which is the biggest hidden fear in people's minds. Many times you might have seen in the news that an EV caught fire. These are rare cases, but when they happen, they can be quite dangerous because lithium-ion batteries carry a risk of thermal runaway, meaning once a fire starts, it becomes very difficult to control. That's why, many people still wonder, is an EV really safe, especially when it comes to family safety. Apart from this, infrastructure is also a big issue. In big cities, the charging network is slowly improving, but it's still not uniform everywhere. For people living in apartments, even home charging becomes a challenge, and if you have to depend on public chargers, then availability and waiting time become another headache. Now, if you connect all these points, you understand why there is hesitation in buying EVs. People like the technology, they understand fuel savings, they agree with the environmental benefits, but when it comes to practical usage, all these small problems together turn into a big decision. Now, let's understand what a solid-state battery actually is. Today most EVs use lithium-ion batteries. Inside these batteries there is a liquid called electrolyte. This liquid helps electricity move from one side to another. Now that same road has turned into a strong, smooth highway. What is the biggest advantage of this? First of all, safety. Since there is no liquid inside, the risk of fire becomes much lower. And that means the hidden fear that people carry in their minds can be reduced to a great extent. The second big advantage is energy density, meaning storing more power in the same space. In simple terms, if earlier your bag could carry 5 books, now the same bag can carry 10 books without increasing its size. This means the EV's range will increase and the battery size or weight will not increase as much. A solid-state battery can theoretically charge much faster because it has lower internal resistance and generates less heat.